Well, hello everyone. I want to give you a warm welcome. I'm Cody Leibold. Do you know what Christians were meant to be? Jesus taught this in Matthew 5:13. You are the salt of the earth. And in verse 14 through 16, he says, You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand. And it gives light to all of the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. I love that emphasis on what is the purpose behind it, to give glory to God. And this means that we actually have a job in the world. Jesus says we are to be like salt and light. As Christians, we are to be people who declare the truth and who do good deeds that preserve the world, that show people the way to live. Our society needs that. If you're like me, this is something that's on your mind a lot. What can we be doing in our society to actually help people, to help make life better for people, to help point people to God so that God gets the glory and so that people will be free from the suffering and the pain? I read that Jabez prayer just this week, and I guess it's in First Chronicles. You're in the middle of a whole bunch of genealogies, and all of a sudden, Jabez prays, don't let me be a pain and don't let me suffer pain, but expand my territory, bless me, let me be a blessing to others. And he was honorable, more honorable than his brothers, the passage says. And then it says, and God answered. And someone just had the boldness to go to God and say, please, don't let me be a pain, because his name actually meant pain. Jabez means pain. And he just prayed, I don't want that. I want something different. He asked. And as Jesus often teaches, ask and you will receive. So FTNCI is a project that moves forward with that in mind, with that amount of faith. We just ask that God will prosper our work, that God will help the world become a better place through what we're doing, because we believe that that's the way society needs to go. That's the way our churches need to go. If you're like me, you spend a lot of time wondering, what could I actually do? Like, is there a plan that would make the world a better place? And I want you to imagine if the Christian leaders that you know of today, the pastors, the presidents of the seminaries, if they had a plan, and if their plan was not simply, we will make more pastors and more churches, and we will make sure that those churches teach the gospel, but if the plan had something more than just that bare minimum baseline level of teaching, but rather we want to transform our society. We want to equip parents to be the best parents they can be. We want to equip people to build wealth and to have influence. We want to equip Christians to influence our society and speak prophetically to the political institutions. We want Christians running things. This is, it's not promised that we will succeed in that mission, and that's not the only mission that Christians have. But if you want to be a good disciple, you will seek to make the world a better place in whatever sphere of influence is available to you. And so this is a vision that I have for the world and for how Christians should understand what the church is supposed to be doing in the world. The purpose of the church is to glorify God in all of life, not merely to make more pastors or even to make more churches and more church meetings or more programs. All of those are a means to an end. The chief end of the church is not to create more pastors. It's that God would be glorified through the lives of every Christian, that there be more Christians in the world that are actually able to identify right from wrong. So if you have thousands or millions of churches in the world, but the Christians are voting for injustice, then the church is not accomplishing its mission. And so this is a challenge that we see in the country today. We see the big evangelical movement tries to downplay moral issues or political issues that are fundamentally moral issues. And we want to take on that problem. We want to say, we want Christians to be moving forward into the world and speaking the truth about various issues, which you know about from following FTNCI. And we actually have a plan for how we can make this happen. So imagine if you had a plan for creating spiritual influence within the domain of your own life. If you could be on a course of action where each day you know what the steps are so that you could influence other people for the truth in at least some way every day. That's what we're aiming to provide for you at FTNCI. That's the whole reason why we have the project. So today's topic, 3 ways to connect with FTNCI's mission. By the end of this discussion, you will know what our plan is, and you'll know several ways that you can be part of what we're doing. So the time today, we have an hour and 15 minutes total. The first part is just a short presentation, and then there will be time for questions and open discussion, like a town hall meeting, where it's moderated. We'll ask you to present your question concisely, and then I'll interact with it. Another person can interact as well if they want. And so that's the overall flow. We want you to make sure that this is it's a Q&A on the topic of what is FTNCI's mission? What is our work about? So that's the domain of the discussion. Now, I want to remind you, most of our Hangouts are not recorded. This one is recorded. So if you come on camera, please say the things that you're okay putting on YouTube or presenting to anybody in the future. It's going to be public. So for everyone that is here live, I want you to know you're welcome to join on video, especially after the first part, after the presentation. And you're also welcome to use the comment section. And if you do come on video, just be aware that that's going to be for the future as well. All right, so now the focus of this opening presentation today is I want you to understand FTNCI's mission, what makes it distinct from several other worldview projects, like, say, Ligonier Ministries, Desiring God, or many Christian podcasts. There's a lot of Reformed Christian podcasts and YouTube channels. We want you to understand what we're doing that's positionally distinct, and then we want to show you the 3 ways that you can connect with what we're doing. So we are on a mission to change the world. And the kind of change that we want to create is an intellectual change and a spiritual change. So it's the kind that only happens when people connect with other people and when they find ways that they can work together toward their shared goals. So the change that we want to create, it's going to depend on building a community. People that know each other, people that can work together, that are able to defend specific truths, and that are able to approach the world with a spirit of enterprise. We're not pacifists. We're not sitting back like spectators. We want to make a change in the world. That's something that brings us together. It's part of our DNA. So believing it's possible to shift our culture and even our churches, even our personal lives, that's essential. Now, when you understand FTNCI's mission, then you're going to figure out whether you're able to be an ally to us in the way that many of you already are, and what other ways that you could be involved. There's several different options that you have for how you could take what we're doing and either build on it yourself or help us out. So let's talk about FTNCI's mission. Now, I'd asked you earlier, imagine if Christian leaders would learn how to take a stand for the values of Western civilization. For example, the 10 Commandments, you should not steal. As basic as that is, we have a systemic problem in our society today with the government stealing. And with people not understanding what property rights are, or the right to your own life, even the right to do business the way you want. Imagine if Christian leaders could take a stand on that issue, what that would do for our society. Historically, the countries that have been the most effective in sending missionaries to other countries and in evangelizing the world have been the free countries. That's a no-brainer. You have to have the freedom to, first of all, to generate wealth and to get on a ship and go to another country. And to teach people, you have to have the freedom to actually speak. And we're going to lose the ability to do that if we become a Marxist dystopia. So we're talking about like the Christian witness in the world, and the whole Christian mission in the world is at stake if we become a totalitarian dictatorship. Like we have to be willing to speak against that as Christians, and we have to be willing to speak for liberty and American values, individualism, reason, individual rights, these kinds of things that we always talk about. So what is for the New Christian Intellectual? And what does it have to do with that? Well, we're a leadership training organization that aims to equip people to understand Americanism, or Western civilization's key values. That's just our mission. We want to help people understand these things. And so we take a stand for these topics, but we're looking to the future. We're finding people that also want to speak about these topics, and we're equipping them. So it's sort of like a two-pronged approach. We speak, and we train other people to speak. Now, those values, reason, individualism, capitalism, if you align with those, then you're one of those people that we would want to meet with and get to know and equip, so that you could go on social media, or you could talk to people in your Bible study or church. You could be spreading the truth about these issues and pointing people to good resources, either from us or from wherever you find them. So if you want to get a summary of our positions for the New Christian Intellectual, you can go to christianintellectual.com/new-Athens. It's new-Athens. And it's about 1,000-word summary of where we lie, like what are our positions on these issues. And we also have a full presentation of our belief system or our school of thought, and that will be coming out in our book, Redeeming the West, this fall. So our mission is ultimately, it can be condensed to let's find a way to help people find out about this New Athens statement and about our book, Redeeming the West. If we can get people to find out about those things, become aware of them, believe in them, share them with other people, then we will be accomplishing our mission. So that this has given us a better focus in this last year as we've been working on that statement and that book. Now, we have our regular content, our podcast, social media, and our community. Like we've worked hard to pull people together. We have close to 5,000 people in a Facebook group. We have many, many thousands of people following different Facebook pages, Twitter. And the point is not to get a million people following us. The point is to get a dozen people or 100 people or eventually 1,000 people who we actually know personally, that we've been able to talk with about these topics, and we understand that we're fundamentally aligned, and we can help them, we can work with them so that they can be the new Christian intellectuals. It's in the name. I don't call myself the new Christian intellectual. I am for the new Christian intellectual. I want to help the people that are going to be more academically successful in their careers or more influential than me. I want to help them meet each other, and I want to help them get excited about a certain set of ideas. That's my place in the world. And hopefully, we will eventually have 1,000. Right now, we have, say, 10 here live, and in the future, we'll have 100 live. And in the future, there will be 1,000 or more people that meet basic criteria, such as they know what the New Athens Statement says, and they affirm it, and they're committed to some form of speaking out in public. So we have a system that is functioning already. You already have seen what we do. You've seen sort of the part of the iceberg that's outside of the water. You can see our publishing activities. But if you want to know what our overall approach is, there's a part of the iceberg that you don't see, which is the amount of time that we spend with people one-on-one when they're going through a hard time, or when they have a huge problem they need help solving, or when they need a consultation about how they can begin expanding their own reach or their own career. And so we work with people in a one-on-one capacity, and we see these, like the public content and the private mentoring or working with people, we see this as being connected. One of them is sort of like the fishing line to get to come into contact with people. So that's our system. And over time, we believe we'll be able to identify 1,000 people that meet this criteria of being a new intellectual, a new Christian intellectual. And the way that we will make sure that we have quantified this is when I'm able to meet with 1,000 people and find out from personal conversation with them that they are on board with this mission and that they are willing to take steps to speak out in public, I will give each one of those 1,000 people something called the New Athens certification. So far, we only have given out a handful of these, but it's going to be a big project for me to meet with many, many people, and also to find others that can meet with more people. And eventually we will have this whole group, a network of people that are New Athens certified. And that gives me a quantifiable goal to work toward. So when I talk about people being committed to some kind of intellectual advocacy or speaking out, what I mean is either they say, hey, yeah, I'm definitely going to start making posts on social media about Americanism or about the values of Western civilization. Or I'm going to start a goal group, a discussion group, like over Facebook Messenger. Something about bettering myself or living in a Christian way or sharing Bible verses or physical exercise is a good one. But whatever it is, it's creating a community. Even if you're just the organizer and just the encourager, you're not necessarily the intellectual expert. You're creating a community of people that believe certain things, that have certain goals, and you're helping them. If we do that, then eventually we will be salt and light to an expanding range of people. It could be that you are a Sunday school teacher. It could be that you are teaching people in a Bible study context, or that you're a pastor, or that you're a mentor to people. These are different ways that you can have salt and light influence. And so every one of those examples, that's an example of somebody who's being a leader. Doesn't mean that they have a positional title. It means that they are being an influence on other people and that they're taking an active leader's mindset as they think about that influence. So we're finding people that have that aspiration, that spirit of enterprise, that want to actively influence others, and we want to help those people along. So as part of our mission, of course, we have our own content, we have our podcast, but we also have this overall system of getting in contact with people, finding out if they're people of character that we really want to invest in, that we believe in, and then pushing them forward. So that's overall our system. You can think about FTNCI as an iceberg. And that's something that makes us a little distinct from the people that just go on YouTube once a week and comment about what's on Twitter. That they're not actually doing that for the most part. And there's also, you can imagine that what we're doing, it's not monetized in the same way either. What we're doing at ChristianIntellectual.com is a donation-based system. If you think about, if you're trying to create a model for revenue for making a project work, there either has to be some kind of advertising dollars, like, I'm selling something else, like I'm selling a course, or I'm selling you coffee, or maybe I have a huge audience on YouTube and I'm getting YouTube special incentives. They pay their creators. Those are models that work, but that's not the model that we're going for. We are going for a very deep amount of influence with a very select group of people. We don't really care if we get 1 million views on YouTube. What we care is if 1,000 people become Christian intellectuals. So that dictates our goal. And strategically, it doesn't make a lot of sense for me to be investing most of my time talking to people who already have an established career or a long established career. Strategically, the best use of my time as a mentor would be talking to somebody who is in his 20s or 30s, or somebody who is in her 20s or 30s, that has not yet defined the career direction and that is still in the process of figuring out philosophically, intellectually, politically, what their viewpoint is. That's where the best use of my mentoring time would be. But those people don't have a lot of money. So therefore, this points to the need for a donation-based model where other people that are already further ahead in their career can donate to support the work that I'm doing as I help other people. That's the explanation of our financial system. So you can see it's a system. Above the surface, intellectual resources that equip people to understand cultural issues in light of our school of thought. And then below the surface, transformation of leaders and training of leaders. If you're familiar with Andrew Boone, or if you were part of our book study earlier this year, Andrew is one of those leaders. I've put a lot of time into mentoring him. There's many others as well that I've mentored in one way or another over the years. And you can see the fruit of that as somebody develops their thought and sharpens it and then becomes a leader themselves in some way. So as you see our social media interactions, as you see our efforts at publishing, just keep in mind, you cannot quantify our success by whether or not we reached 100,000 views on YouTube. You have to quantify our success in terms of people. So when somebody falls into this sort of like funnel that we've created, or this net of attraction, this is basically what we do. Is we will, somebody comments on Facebook and says, I really like what you're doing. I'll initiate a message with them on Facebook or get them on the phone and find out, hey, do you have any questions about what we're doing, or you have any questions about theology or philosophy? I can point you to some of my favorite books. Or if I notice that they're a go-getter and that they have initiative, I would say, do you want to be part of one of our goal groups? Or do you want to learn more about our New Athens certification? That's the flow of how we're building. So now zooming out a bit, just to understand like the big picture, why is it for the new Christian intellectual? We really do believe that we can reshape society over time, gradually, by having more Christian intellectuals, by having more people that are thinking the way I'm describing, thinking in terms of how can I be an agent of change? How can I be a catalyst? And the way you do that is by being the kind of person who lives according to the truth and talks about it. It's as simple as that. Like, so I want to find my people, and I want you to find your people that see the truth and that are willing to take action on it. That's the new Christian intellectuals. Now, our plan is going to be that we develop people's vision. We help them see things in a new way. We have to help them see their future in a new way. And we develop people's skills. And I'm not talking about investing only in future famous people. That's not the point. We are investing in whoever wants to be an encourager to others, to other Christians. We're investing in whoever wants to be a Barnabas, like the Bible talks about. And that includes somebody who organizes a fitness group. A couple years ago, Greg and I decided, you know what, we're just going to start. We're going to create something called Moving Forward, and it's going to be a fitness group for men. And it was just 10 or 12 guys. And from there, we expanded. And that's our plan, is to continue doing that kind of thing. So we want to find the people that are most likely to be able to positively influence the world, to understand philosophic issues, to understand political theory, to understand Christian doctrine. That's our mission. So as we help those people, then what we're going to be able to do is give them a gift. One of the most important things that you can do for somebody is to see the value that they have to offer the world and to tell them, I see the value that you have to offer the world. This is a core part of what we're doing at FTNCI is when we mentor people, we don't say, hey, look at me. We say, I want you to realize something about yourself that you didn't see before. And so this is called the gift. The gift that you can give the other person is to see something valuable about themselves that they do not yet see, or see something about their potential that they don't see. This is how God could use you. We tell that to other people, and that becomes contagious. So with that overall philosophy, that approach and conviction, we believe that this is a mission that is unstoppable. It doesn't require me to do one or another thing. It just requires us each to do what we think God is calling each of us to do. And I think that if you've been a Christian for a while, especially if you're reading the Bible consistently, you'll see that this is the model. This is how Jesus lived. This is how the apostles lived. And we know from the growth of the early church, it did not require billions of dollars of investment from somebody. It required individual people that had a heart for this mission. So that is our plan, and that is our purpose in the world. Okay, so now in the remainder of the presentation today, probably about another 10 minutes, I want to share with you about how you could be connected to that. Now, basically, if you're here listening, or if you're somebody that's familiar with our work already, we consider you to be part of our community. Community is just another, in online publishing, it's similar to the word audience, but or followers. But I think followers is a little condescending because it sounds like, like we're starting a religion or something. We're not doing that. It's just a community, and it's a loose community. It's just people that know each other and are familiar with each other. And if you are in this community, we want you to know how you can connect with our mission. So there are three main ways, and they are community participation, activism, which means you actually do something, and then the last one would be supporting FTNCI's mission through prayer or through becoming a Patreon supporter for our project. So those are the three ways, and I'll explain each of them just briefly. So community participation, this is what this looks like. You're here already on a video hangout. You're part of our community participation. If you attend a Twitter space, or if you comment on social media, or if you are part of one of our group chats, or if you are taking an initiative within those spaces and you're making connections with new people. There's a lot of value in being able to meet new people. Like if you look around who else is here right now, these are some of the best people in my life. And one of the best things that I could ever offer any individual person that's here right now is to introduce you to some of the other people that are here right now. Because I don't have a million hours to be everybody's best friend, but there is a best friend within this group. And there are people that can be a Barnabas to you in some capacity, or a resource to you in some capacity. So there is a lot of power there. So I want to make an opportunity for you to meet other people who have thought about controversial topics, philosophy, theology, and they know how to talk about those in a way that is mature, respectful, and that are able to have a sense of community with those people. So that's a key aspect to our mission, is creating that dynamic, that community participation. And that will help us spark each other and spur each other. It will help us challenge each other to think about intellectual issues and matters of truth and what faithfulness and good stewardship looks like. So that will happen as people engage our materials, as they say, yeah, I actually agree with that. And then as they find other people who can say the same thing. All right, the second main way that I would suggest that people could be connected to FTNCI's mission is activism. So you might be able to participate directly in creating intellectual content. Social media, interviews, podcasts, book studies. You've seen what that all looks like already, so it's not a mystery. You might do something on your own project. You might join with what we're doing in some way. Now, to the extent that somebody believes in the New Athens statement, that's going to help. We're going to be able to say, oh, yeah, we really want to invest in you. And without charging them any money or anything like that, we can definitely help people. We can send a broadcast to our email list that says, hey, check out this guy's YouTube channel. Or we can say, hey, you need to get to know this person. So if you are wanting to be an intellectual activist, we want to help you grow that. And the first way that you could do that would be to get that New Athens certification so that we have a chance to have conversations about, hey, where do you stand on these issues? Do we really want to be helping you for free? The New Athens certification also does not cost anything, by the way. So that's part of the model. So we would want to be delivering as many of those as possible. If I could be delivering a new certification once a month, I would. And basically, the requirements for somebody to get that certification would be listen to our first 9 episodes of our podcast or read our book once it comes out and then have a conversation with us about where you stand on what we said. And it's a simple plan, but it's for Christians. It's for people who have a church that they are a part of, and it's for people that are committed to doing some kind of public speech. So that is how you could become an activist. That's the second out of the 3.
Cody, can I interrupt you for a second?
Yeah, go ahead.
We have a question in the group chat from Jennifer. She says, question for the appropriate timing. How do you encourage people to facilitate little sub-communities when it appears that there are already a plethora of sub-communities people can join, e.g. the gym chat group?
Jennifer, would you want to expand on your question? Because I'm not sure I understand it.
Sure. Sorry. And it's okay to postpone this till later. I just wanted to throw a question out there while I had it. So if you see that there's something that you're interested in that you think you're capable of facilitating or coordinating a group and being an encourager, and let's say your group is what you talked about, the gym chat group, guys there to support each other. And you're like, well, I already see that there's an opportunity over there. I saw 3 Facebook groups already when I did my own search type of thing. So how is it that you would encourage people to say, you know, it's okay to start your own. And then if the person's like, but maybe my own is not going to be as successful or as, what's the word, formal, or just whatever the hesitations are, how do you help people get over their hesitations of being facilitators of these little kind of smaller groups?
So being a leader of a Facebook group is different from being a leader of just a group chat. And
Mhm.
one of the important things to realize is that there are pros and cons to any size. So the experience that we're having here on a video with just 10 people is different than if it were 100 people, as far as the amount of chance that everybody will get to share their comments and questions and interact with each other. When Greg and I first started the Moving Forward group, it was only 10 or 12 people, and it was people that we'd already kind of talked with to some degree. So it was very easy to just say, hey, would everybody want to be part of this? Because we already had some context with them. And because it was small, we were able to share like pictures of ourselves at the gym or just talk about our lives whenever there's a prayer request that came up. Hey, guys, I want you to pray for my family member or whatever. And that is a distinct value that other people will see. And that's different from, I'm a guru and I speak on a stage in front of thousands of people. But I mean, people want both of those kinds of experiences at different times in their lives. So that's one dynamic to be aware of, is that you are providing probably more value the smaller amount of people that you're with. And um, other than that, another thing that you could point out is what you're providing somebody is I'm going to be the person who is your friend, not the person who is 1,000 steps ahead of you. If I were to go to, like, say, hire a personal trainer and that person were extremely fit and I were just getting started as far as going to the gym, I would feel like there's a big gap between where they are and where I am. And they meet a certain need in my life. But if there's somebody else who's my best friend who's exactly where I am that's going to come with me, that other person also meets a different need for me. So you can think about it that way. I think what I want you to take away from that is that wherever you are, if you're willing to connect with another person, then you're bringing value into their life. Earlier today, Greg Muse sent me a message where he just asked me, like, how can I best be of value to you, Cody? And I told him, well, Greg, your best value to me in my life is as my friend and as a fellow faithful warrior for the truth. Because when I see that you are succeeding in your mission that God has given you, that greatly encourages me. And, if I had told Greg, well, the best thing you could do for me is to sign up for my $10 Patreon, that would have changed our relationship. But that's not at all the kind of relationship we have. And so, I want you to see that that's really true in friendship. And that's what you do have to offer people, first of all. It doesn't mean that that's the only thing that you ever offer. Do you have any follow-up questions on that, Jennifer?
Oh, thank you so much.
Well, let me just get into the last section in the notes that I have, and then we'll open up to more Q&A. So I had just explained about being part of our community and then becoming an intellectual activist. You don't need my help to do either of those things, but you have plenty of opportunity if you take initiative. You could begin to do those things. And then the final point that I wanted to share with you is to support FTNCI's mission. So basically the question that I want you to think about is, how is Cody able to do what he's doing? And how much more of it would you like to see in the world? So we are a donor-supported project, and something that makes us different from a lot of other podcasters and YouTubers is that we are focused on finding and training leaders at a deep level. We find people we strongly believe in that are talented, we equip them, and we mentor them, and we do it for free. Which, if that makes you excited, then I think it's pretty cool. I think it has the ability to get some new change in the world that we haven't seen, because we're not tied to having to find the richest person and help them. We can look to the future. We can find the leaders of the future. So our online community initiatives, our New Athens certification, all of this is free of charge. And this is risky. We chose this model, even though certain people told us, hey, you should be selling that. You shouldn't be giving that away for free. We chose this model because our focus is on helping and equipping the next generation. We're thinking generationally. And it so happens because of the amount of donors that we already have, and because of God's blessing on my family and on other people involved, we're able to put in a certain amount of work into the project as it is right now. And we're able to wait for it to bear financial fruit for the long run, maybe 10 years from now, where some of the people that we've trained are in a position where they can look back and they can say, I'm an alumni of that and I believe in it. That's thinking institutionally and thinking generationally. So we chose this model for a good reason. And for the time being, and probably into the future, we're going to use this donor model to support our work. We think it's the most viable option given the challenges that we face, given the direction that we're going. You cannot just simply get a seat at the table if you believe some of the things that we believe For the Christian Intellectual. You have to build your own table. And that's what we're doing. So we do have a group of faithful financial supporters, and they understand what FTNCI is about, and they are in a position already in their life that they can donate to our project, in addition to donating to their own church, their local church. So I would invite everyone here and everyone in our wider community to consider being a supporter of this mission. If you understand what we're doing, if you want to see it succeed, I also would ask you to pray regularly for what we're doing. Pray for me, for my mindset and vision, and for me to be effective, and pray for the other people that are involved. So we have a group chat that is our prayer team, and I think most of you are in it. It's on Facebook, and we give updates about our work. So I'd invite you to be part of that prayer team. And whenever I ask people to donate to my project, I'm going to connect it with this idea of first be a prayer warrior for us. And then if you're also able to consider donating and donate at whatever level you are able, because consistency is more important than the actual amount. Consistency means that I know what to expect for this year and I know where our funds can go. So if you would like to join that prayer team, then send me a message and I can add you. Right now it's 64 people in the prayer team. And if you would like to become a donor, it's at patreon.com/FTNCI. And as of right now, mid-2025, we have 54 members at our Patreon page. Some of them donate $1 a month, and some are donating hundreds of dollars a month. So the level of financial support that we have right now has already made it possible for us to complete our first full-length book, and this is a big deal. It's like a 400-page book. It's some of you guys have already had the chance to give some input on it and read it, and I'll say this: it's the best that I can do this year on the time that I have, and it will make it so that there is an easy beacon for people to see this is what FTNCI stands for. And especially if you have a pastor that's like, what's this all about? You could hand them the book and say, just read the first 13 pages. It will summarize what they are arguing. And then if you have more questions, see the index, see the back of the book. Quick question from Tyrell. He says, would you classify FTNCI as a think tank, sort of in the vein of the Heritage Foundation, for example? I would classify us as a leadership development organization, similar to the Arbinger Institute that wrote Leadership and Self-Deception. That's the model that we're going for. But there is kind of a connection, there's kind of a parallel between that and a think tank. If we were to become larger, we could actually create a foundation, so that's a legal entity, and that would make us like a 501c3 so that people could give tax-deductible donations. Currently, we're operating technically as a business partnership, and so we're not 501c3 certified at the moment. We would have to make a decision if we did become a 501c3 that we would purposely refrain from giving our opinion about who to vote for. And so that's we would at some point in the future need to think through that. But Heritage Foundation and in any of the organizations that you follow, they're at least you could think about them as being somewhat similar to what we're doing. And definitely think tank is one of the terms that came to mind when we first were conceiving what we want to be. Another term that comes to mind is ministry. And we purposely decided not to classify what we're doing as a ministry as far as our public brand. And the reason is because we're not officially connected to a specific church at this time. And so we thought, okay, well, we would call ourselves a ministry if we were connected to a specific church, or if we had pastors on our leadership team. That would potentially be the time to call it a ministry. But in my heart, it's a ministry. And it's a labor of love. Tyrell, did you have any follow-up on that question about think tank and what category we're in? Okay, he says, that's super helpful. Thanks, Cody, no follow-up. So I wanted you to know that what you've seen from us in the past 9 years since we started our podcast is essentially pivoting this year. That's one of the reasons why I decided to give this presentation today. Is I wanted you guys to see that we have so far created intellectual content, sort of like a beacon to point people to, but now we're going to very aggressively move in this direction of equipping other people and doing the New Athens certifications. And that's going to be the bulk of what my personal focus is on the rest of this year and then into 2026. And I think that's important for you to know because it's you might not always know what I'm doing. And if you're going to consider becoming a financial supporter, I wanted you to get the big picture. That there's that two parts of the iceberg, the part that you can see and the part that's underwater. And over time, I will get better at presenting little case studies about hey, here's what I did, or maybe put together a brochure that says, here's some of our stats about how many people we certified and what those people are up to, so that you can have some sense of visibility into what you're supporting. So that's where your donation goes if you are a supporter. And if you like what you're seeing, please consider partnering with us in whatever way that you're able to, as a prayer warrior or as somebody who helps fund the project. Think about it as planting seeds. That's how I think about it. And pray about whether you would want and be able to give regular support to what we're doing. So that is the end of my presentation, the prepared presentation. And with that, I want to open up our town hall time together with Q&A. So first, I'm going to make sure and scroll through the comments from everybody and make sure anybody that left a comment gets a chance to have that heard. And then if you want to, please continue dropping in more comments. Love to hear comments, questions. And then toward the last part of our video today, I will make sure and give us a chance to have some more open, less structured discussion. So here's a comment from Alex Hume. Do you consider FTNCI as a type of discernment ministry? Yes, and it's like I mentioned, it is a two-pronged approach where we are doing something publicly and we are also asking other people to imitate us. So I see if I am going to, like, for example, if I were going to say, hey, this seminary taught something and it's false and I want you to know about it, I will go and I will say that publicly. And that's discernment ministry, like watchdog, watch blogger type stuff. I don't necessarily say that everybody that I'm training needs to imitate me in that. So, for example, suppose that I happen to be a mentor to somebody who's a lawyer. He doesn't want to do that because that would put him in danger with his career. So I want to help him maximize his impact in the world through his career. But I do want you to realize that what we're doing at FTNCI does include some amount of discernment work like that. Over the last, say, 15 years, since blogging became huge and podcasting became as big as it is, there's been a growth in discernment ministries. There's been a lot of people that have come and gone, a lot of big platforms. And I don't think that there's necessarily a shortage of material about that. So one of the things that I would try to do positionally for FTNCI is I would want to be a person who you can always go to say, hey, who would you recommend? I want to be active myself in tracking who's saying what, and I want to be a resource to you to point you to other resources. And likewise, our community has that function. You can go to other people in our community and say, hey, what podcasts do you think are really correct theologically? I would also mention that the overall project that we are on, we're intending to be the people who are able to say things that other people don't always feel comfortable saying. And there's two different aspects that I want to point about that. One is sometimes somebody's just got to do it. And so, like, I'm in a position to do that. And I know not everybody here is in a position to do that. And because of career considerations. And so I would ask you to think about us as being potentially a partnership in some way where you send me information and I post it, or you and I talk about something that's on your heart. I write an article, you pray for it. That's a partnership. That's how you could think about that. The other aspect about this discernment ministry question that Alex brought up that I think is kind of important to mention is, as far as our long-term strategy, FTNCI needs to be something that functions as an institution. That means we don't want to pick fights with everybody all the time. We want to be in communication with the people that are our community and donors and prayer warriors about what are their positions, and we don't want to unnecessarily alienate people. So the way that we move forward in that regard in integrity is we define our positions as we did in our book, and then we resolve that our online communication, our social media posts, things we argue in our podcast, that they align and connect with what we've already done, so that way, if anybody is supporting our work long term, they have a sense of continuity there, that they know what they're supporting. I remember several years back, we had a donor that had given us about $800 over a period of a year. And somehow he had never really followed our work very carefully, and he didn't realize that we disagree with presuppositionalism, and he became very offended. And so we refunded him the money. We thought that was the right thing to do, and we wanted to preserve the relationship with him. And we didn't want him to, donating your money to help some stranger on the internet talk about some controversial topics, and then you feel like he's stepping on you and stepping on your toes, that's not a good feeling. So that's overall kind of our heart for that is we want to make sure that everybody knows what they're getting into if they support us. and we want to be real with you about what we believe, and we don't want to be changing our positions because that would not be fair to our current supporters. Alex, did you have any follow-up about that?
Um, no, I think you covered that very well. It's interesting to hear what you have to say about FTNCI as becoming an institution, because that was a scale that I was not aware of, though it's something I can confidently say I would support.
Thank you, Alex.
Perhaps maybe you've chosen simply to release that kind of information within a setting like this, but perhaps as time goes on, you might benefit from making that more apparent. Because I think in my mind, mistakenly, I'd almost seen you almost as solely a very unique niche type of discernment ministry.
I want to follow up with you more in the future, and I'll ask you your thoughts about that because only other people can see what we look like from the outside. I'm stuck inside the bottle, so to speak, and so I cannot read the outer label of what we look like. Uh, yeah, we do need to make sure that our social media presentations, our website, everything communicates this is what we're aiming to be, this is what we already are to an extent. Any follow up on that, Alex?
Uh, Nothing really, other than if you do want to reach out, feel free anytime, and we can set something up.
Excellent. Nathan, are you seeing anything in the comments that you would say we definitely need to address? I think we've read through all the comments at this point that are. Oh, and Greg has said he messaged me a couple of comments. So let me look over at Greg's. Yeah, Greg, I would love to hear more about the Moving Forward group to start with, and please share about how that connects with what we're talking about, the mission that we're on.
Yeah, so a lot of what FTNCI is focused on is rational self-interest. There's a focus on stewarding your own life. That way you are prepared to, and then you'll be more prepared to help other people. But even if other people weren't a consideration, you should still steward your own life. So one of the big things that we've focused on the side is fitness. There's something very shameful about Christian men talking about how we love the Lord and speaking out against sin, yet being overweight, out of shape. We're seeing the clear signs of gluttony. That's not good. Yet we see apologists like Wes Huff, who is very much up and coming, and he goes on secular shows and people will jokingly call him Wes Buff. And he says, well, I'm putting the test back in Testament. So we've had a few moving forward groups where we have groups of Christian men coming together and really focusing on fitness. And the first moving forward group, Cody and I co-founded it together. And I was the most out of shape guy in the group. Yet I said, I'm going to turn my life around. I'm going to start making a change. And with a group of men to encourage each other, it really helped to have that positive social pressure to go to the gym, go work out, go for a run. I liked to do swimming a lot to start with. And as time has gone on, now I've moved to lifting weights a lot more. And I have a gym buddy now who is teaching me how to use a lot of weights. So it's something that has really pushed us in the right direction. But we're also not mommying people. You are responsible for your own life. You are responsible to go to the gym. And initially we had requirements that people had to do a post at least like once a week or something like that, just so that we knew that everybody was keeping on track and everybody was remaining accountable. Should I mind if I put my other comment out there too?
Yeah, let's hear that one.
All right, so when we talked about mentoring people one-on-one, Jesus had 12 apostles. Jesus went out there, he did the Sermon on the Mount in front of a lot of people. But in terms of the initial impact of the gospel, this started out with 12 individuals. And so your impact can start very small. And there were other people in their entourage, of course, as the Gospels make very clear, but these 12 apostles were the main guys. These were the main guys that Jesus was mentoring one-on-one. And from there, the gospel has spread around the world to billions of people. And that's something that, as a biologist, I really appreciate. You can start out with one or two of any kind of organism, and within a few generations, you can have millions. And same thing about spreading any message. You start out with a few people, and they gradually tell other people, and you can have a movement grow exponentially in that way.
Thank you, Greg, for sharing that. Yeah, absolutely. All right, Nathan, you had said you wanted to add something about that fitness group.
Yeah, I'd like to add that the cool thing about FTNCI's mission is what you're doing can be done by the average person. Um, and I don't mean that in the sense to downplay your efforts at all or the talent that goes into what you do. I just mean that the format you've chosen is something that's pretty accessible to most people. And that's it being a part of one of these groups gives me a vision of what's possible for someone with an internet connection to just put something together and see what kind of connections can be made, what kind of leadership or vision can be propagated among other people. I recently started a fitness group chat that was actually based off of uh, Greg's group chat for fitness. Now his was called Moving Forward. Mine is called Keep It Moving, because I wanted to kind of model it after that. And I just chose a couple of my local friends who are also Christians who are into fitness. I don't see myself as the leader of the group. I just kind of put the group chat together and asked them, "Hey, do you want to be a part of this? I think it would be kind of fun. I think it would be motivating. It would be motivating to see each other making progress on our own personal goals. Like you were saying, Cody, it's not like gathering followers, but you're gathering a community of people who are each individually working on their own personal goals. So I got us together. I modeled it off of that moving forward chat, which you and Greg started, and it's not a mandatory once a week posting, but it's a recommended once a week posting. And it's cool to just share what we're doing. We start talking about other fitness topics, how to improve what we're doing, and it's an iron sharpens iron kind of thing. And in the middle of that, people reach out and they reach out with prayer requests and to share what's going on in their lives. And so we get invested in one another and we know how to pray for one another. Um, and I think, you know, just as the group chats that you've started and that Greg has started have given me sort of a vision of being able to do something like this, I'm also sharing that vision with them, because they're discovering the joy of being in it together with other Christians who are working towards similar goals. That's what I want to say about that.
Thank you for that. Nathan, that is exactly the model that we're looking at because you're seeing the value in the connection. So anyone else have other input or questions? We can open up more to just general conversation if anyone wants to suggest topics that are related to this overall, the theme of today, our mission. I'll give you about 10 seconds to think about it. I know some people will take a little time to process.
So Cody, I have a contribution, but sometimes I'm not so articulate, but you have video editing that you can make it, give me a pause or something. So I was I've been trying to figure out ways where I have the value, right? Like you and I talked a few weeks ago about how um, I have value to add, and that I've been attending this new church now for about a year and a half, and I keep kind of going from service area to service area to be like, where do I fit in? I don't know what to do. I don't know where I'm useful. And I was talking to this with one of the youth group leaders last Sunday, and I said, I've been praying about it, and I just, I don't know what to do. And she goes, God's not going to keep it a secret from you. Like He's going to let you know. You make sure you're listening, and that alone was like reassuring. So while you're here telling people, you're not going to tell people what to do. You're going to tell people you have things to do. Go do it, and we'll help you do it. Um, just to give some reassurance that you're not alone, right? And you have the spiritual support, you have our earthly support. And that's just super encouraging to me. To hear, I've heard her say that, you'd think it was like, top of the news. It should not have been top of the news. It should have been obvious to me, but I needed somebody else to say it.
Thank you for sharing that. Sometimes what really makes a difference in somebody's life is to hear, I believe in you. You have what it takes. Or God is going to answer your prayer, or God is going to make his path clear. I think once you realize that, you realize, oh, you don't have to be a world famous author, or you don't have to be the president of the United States in order to speak truth to somebody and to help them. You just have to be the kind of person who says the obvious, the things that are obvious to you, but may not be obvious to everybody else all the time. I remember having a coach one time just tell me, you actually can do this. You are able to do this. You want to do it. You need to do it. And I realized like this burden just fell off of me. I was like, oh, finally somebody sees, you can do that for somebody. And it's just as simple as looking at them and telling the truth about what you see. It's interesting. I think that we all have the tendency to get stuck, asking, what is my value? What could I really do that would make a difference? And the trouble is, if you're only thinking about what your value is to the other person, then you're kind of distracted from thinking about what is their value and from seeing it. So the more that we just simply get to know other people and we actually take interest in their life, the more we get past ourselves in that way. We get to the point where we can legitimately help them. There was a time where we didn't have any FTNCI book studies, and we didn't really have any regular community events several years back. And I was reading a book, and I just got fed up. I realized I'm just going to send a message to everybody I know that is interested in this, and I'm going to say, hey, Saturday, 6 o'clock in the morning, Pacific time, I'm going to be on camera for an hour. Please join. And certain number of people showed up, and it started out more rough, and then it got better over time. And of course, that's how some of you guys connected with me, is because I just did that. And it's okay. You kind of had to be okay being awkward. Do we have anybody else who wants to share thoughts or any interactions with what we're discussing?
I'll chime in just for a second. Um, I just kind of wanted to see what people's general thoughts are like in their churches and how many kind of go to churches where the ideas that you guys advocate for at FTNCI are they like are they popular ideas there? If not, how do you sort of interact with it? I go to a reformed, like conservative reformed Presbyterian church, uh, and I love my church, and I do see a lot of, I guess, individualism is sort of like still a bad word, sort of. And so, I'm trying to work through myself personally how do we how to influence people there in that context. And this idea has been so hammered into people's heads, individualism's bad. Uh, I'm in the same denomination as people like uh, Carl Truman and J.B. Fesco, and they have a lot of good work, but they help propagate those ideas too. So anyway, I was just curious to see if anyone had any thoughts on those.
I want to give a brief comment and then invite others to join as well in sharing about their experiences. So I'm at a church where we don't have the pastor talking about individualism one way or the other. He just wouldn't use that term, but he is strongly conservative politically, so that helps. So I know that he's not going to be following the big Eva trend, especially getting to the point where, to me, it would be a moral line. If he was saying, hey, people at our church can vote for Democrats, that's okay. If you were saying that, I would say, okay, I can't donate to you anymore because that's getting too obviously outside of biblical grounds. But as far as like the overall like the concept of the word, self-interest or selfish or individualism, it's not that big of a deal if your pastor says, "Hey, I think that such and such a thing is bad," and he explains what he means, and then he uses a term incorrectly. It's just not that big of a deal. Like for example, almost every pastor says that selfish is bad, or that you shouldn't be looking only for your own goals, but you should care about the needs of others. And it's like, well, there's nuance there. And the way that FTNCI is planning to help turn the church around on this issue is that we go out there and we say exactly what we mean and we give all the nuance and we give all the explanation. And then we invite other people who are in our community to decide if we're right. Maybe they take a slightly different position, and that's okay too. We want to foster discussion. And then if you are in that community, you have your own community and you can share with other people. You can say, tell me more about what you mean when you say individualism is bad. What's this individualism you're talking about? Are we talking about in politics, like the idea of Americanism? Is that what you mean? Or are we talking about the idea of being a hermit or the idea of trying to make yourself a star on social media? Specifically, what do you actually criticize here? And you find out that people mean lots of different things and they might not know. They might just be absorbing, kind of copying the terms that they heard other people use without a clear understanding. And one of the best things that you can do for somebody is to ask them, what do you mean? It'd be like the street apologist, except for within your church on philosophy. And that puts you in a position where you're not vulnerable to being attacked, but rather you're putting other people in the spotlight. Did you have any follow-up, Sean?
No, that was good. Yeah, my church. I mean, I can't imagine anyone. I know my pastor or anyone would encourage voting for a Democrat. But it's just some of the more like specifically FTNCI stuff. I was
Mhm.
just curious to see if anyone had experienced that. But that was good. Thank you.
Yeah, let's open it up for anybody that wants to interact with Sean's question, sharing about how this has gone in one or another church you've been in.
Jonah here. I've just encouraged people I know in my church to read books that I'm reading based on um, what Cody's recommended and what's on the website from the New Christian Intellectual, and that's been helping out a lot. And then it leads to further discussions, and usually we'll tie it into what the pastor talks about or biblical stuff after church, and that's really developed a good relationship with a few of the men in my church.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that since you're already offering value in terms of friendship with other people and community, then what you're doing sells itself. And I think that that works. There's a comment here from Nathan Roberts. Anti-reason is sometimes just anti-exalting your own opinion over and against God's. And he says capitalism is sometimes just anti-using force to exploit people. Anti-selfishness is sometimes just anti-being mean. Yeah, so we had to translate and help other people translate their claims. Yeah, that is absolutely right. I think that most of the time when you hear people say, "Hey, we shouldn't elevate reason too much," what they're really getting at is you shouldn't think you're smarter than God. And so you find the area where you can agree with them and say, "Hey, I agree. I don't think I should think I'm smarter than God." Greg sounds like anti-competence from the pulpit. Well, yeah, if it's coming from the pulpit, those are some difficult situations. When the pastor disagrees, it's a different situation than when the congregant is getting something sloppy or wrong. If the pastor is fundamentally wrong about ideological issues, then you have to find out why before making a judgment. It's very difficult to judge people. And many pastors just haven't thought in certain ways about certain questions. One of the things that I would be looking at if I were in a conflict situation with a pastor or just a serious disagreement is I would find out, how does he see me? Because if there's a potential that I could be some kind of salt and light influence on that pastor long range, then it might be worth being very patient. But I want to know whether I have his ear. I want to know whether there's any possibility that I could say something and he would say, you know what, let me think about that, versus if he's only on the offensive. If he's only on the offensive, then you can expect that you're not going to change him. And therefore you have to make the decision about whether or not in good conscience you can support his mission. And that will not always be easy because there's lots of ways to be wrong.
And if I jump in, Cody,
Go ahead, Greg.
I once asked somebody a question of what do you do if you encounter a Christian who says, well, I think that all of the plagues in Exodus were just natural events. And it's like, well, very clearly there's a supernatural thing going on here. It's not an overgrowth of red algae, it's the water is turning to blood. And I think there is a level, we hold different Christians, baby Christians, to a different level from a pastor, a Bible study leader to a different level than your average person in the pulpit or in the church pews. I think at some point it's like, hey, pastor, if you were condemning capitalism, what does this actually mean? It means free markets. And I think sometimes you have to have that tough conversation. And if somebody's being willfully ignorant, and they shouldn't be in the role as a pastor. And I've heard lots of pastors say, they're against selfishness. And it's like, okay, what do we mean by selfishness? This is a very brand new term. And I don't think I should jump down a pastor's throat for saying selfish is bad. But when they start saying that they're against reason, I think you're starting to get into bad territory. And then they say they're against capitalism. I'm like, okay, you should really know your terms and know what you're talking about if you're going to say things like that. And I think that's a basic moral standard for pastors to know your terminology. And I don't want to take up my time here, but I grew up in the Nazarene denomination, and they were bringing in people from BioLogos into their universities, which promotes theistic evolution, this idea that God used evolution to create everything. And I saw that this was so deviant, from a lot of what I see in terms of my mission in life and my mission in the church, that at some point I said, I can't keep tithing to these churches. And I had to make the decision to move on to attend churches of a different denomination. So it's like, hey, if I can't in good conscience tithe to this church, then I should probably be part of a church that I can tithe to in good conscience. And I had a wonderful pastor. He was a lot more conservative, but when I saw that denominational drift, I just said, I can't be a part of this. So those are decisions. I think I'm a little more like, hey, you need to know your terms, you need to know what you're talking about. And you do need to use your mind, especially if you're a pastor. It can't just be, well, everybody has different opinions on things. There does have to be some level of knowledge.
Greg, thank you for saying that. As a follow-up to that, I would always be asking myself, do I want the church that I'm supporting financially to reproduce itself? If it comes to the point where you don't want it to reproduce itself, then it's time to start thinking about taking some kind of action, even if that's just initiating a very long process of attempting to see if you can talk to the pastor about your concern. If you have a pastor that is godly, he will listen to your concern, especially if you approach him with humility. And you don't have to agree like with every detail of what he's doing in order to recognize that he has a heart for the truth. So be looking at that. That's where I would be. All right, there's some other good comments that are in the box there that I don't want to read because some of them are about personal experiences that I wouldn't want necessarily to make public. But I do appreciate this. And um, Alex says Greg is on point here. Many pastors do not know their terms on these issues. Addressing these issues takes time, so building a relationship with your pastor is important. And I think that's a good place where we can wrap our discussion today. I would encourage you to understand that ministry is not always easy and that you are a minister in a certain sense, a servant of God. And God's servants will speak the truth, and they'll find ways that they can speak it effectively. Sometimes that takes time. Time is on your side. If you are a Christian and you have your faith in the Lord, you don't need to be in a rush to start fights with everybody in your personal life. But you do need to ask yourself, am I salt and light? In our discussion today, I have offered you 3 ways that FTNCI can connect with what you're doing and that you can connect with what we're doing. That would be through your community participation, through activism, and through supporting FTNCI's mission, either through prayer or through financial support. Hopefully that will give you a great idea of all the different ways that we are making plans to be salt and light. And so the challenge that I would offer you is ask yourself, how can you make plans that you can be salt and light? I would suggest just do a very quick journal, even if it's opening up your audio recorder on your phone or taking out a sheet of paper and a pencil. And just say, what does it mean for me to be salt and light this week? You keep asking that question and you will find God's path for your life. Thank you for listening today to this presentation. It's been wonderful to have you, and I so appreciate everyone being willing to be part of what we're doing. God bless.